Hey guys, back again. So let's see where we at in the application. So far we already have all the HTML and CSS in place, but of course we cannot look for anything. And now we're going to start working inside the functions.js. So let's go there and start with document that add event listener. So I always use DOM content, if I can type, of course, loaded. So this is going to wait for all the DOM to be in place so we can start looking for the tags and IDs and classes that we want to use. In fact, this event, well, we're not going to use this event. We can delete that. So let's start with constant search bar. We're going to say document that query selector. So we're going to select the next ID, which is the search bar. Another constant output equals. So the output is going to be the document that query selector. It's going to be the repos container. So let me just take a look inside the index so you can see we have the ID search bar and we have the ID repos container. Okay, so those two are the ones that we are looking for. Here, constant base URL, that is going to be the Git URL. So let me just copy that and paste it. So you can copy that, https api github.com search and repositories. Constant message equals document.query selector message ID message. Remember that with query selector we need to specify if this is an ID or a class. If it were a class, we would use a dot instead of this hash pound. Now we have all the constants that we require, so let's create a function which is search repos and start using RxJs. So this one is going to accept a term and we're going to check if the term is not or is equals to an empty string. Console.log. Let's say just not defined. So if this is the term is equals to this empty string, we're going to console just not defined, meaning that the term is empty, and we're going to return rx.observable. Observables are just streams of information that we can use. So we're going to set a stream of null values, okay? Else we're going to return rx.observable. Here we need to create an observable. Let's say observer here, because we want the fetch. We want to observe what is coming from the fetch. So let's say base URL. So this is the URL from the GitHub API. Plus, since the GitHub API requires a parameter inside the URL, we need to type it with this question mark Q for the query and equals to, well, let me just change this to backticks because we want to pass a parameter or a variable here and we're going to pass the term. So if the term is not empty, then we're going to move to this else and start fetching using that term. Then we're going to receive a response, which we're going to turn it into JSON and pass it to another den, which is going to be taking the information and set it as this repos variable. We need to set the observer, which is observing everything that is going on inside the fetch, to have the next value of repos, which are the repos that came from the response of the fetch, and observer that complete in order to say, okay, everything is done. And sorry, this is not it. We need to pass a catch here in case there is a problem. Let's say error and just console.log error, just like that. And that should be it. Just let me remove some spacings there. I think that should be it. Let me just check. Okay. Yep. So below this function, this constant search repos, which is the function, let me just add a comment there, makes the request. So this one is going to make the request using the term, but how we're going to get the term? We're going to say rx.observable that from event. So we're going to create an event, not a stream, sorry. We're going to create a stream of information coming from this event, which is going to use the search bar and is going to look for the input event. So every time we search or we type something inside the search bar, we're going to pass a new value into this stream of information. Map event, we're going to pass an event there, and we're going to say right now console.log event that target that value. If we want to see the value that we are typing inside the search bar, but this map is going to return an observable. It needs to return an observable. So this is the value that we are going to return, the actual value. So let's finish this actually. We're going to now change this using the bounce time, and set it to 400. So what the bounce time is going to do is going to wait for 400 milliseconds in order to continue. Okay, so every time we type, it's going to have a timing of 400 milliseconds in order to continue with the next chain, that is the distinct until change. This should be it, distinct until changed, which is going to check for changes, check if the value that we're receiving is different, check if the term is different, and switch map, lol. Okay, I cannot type today, it seems. Switch map is going to accept the term, and switch map needs to respond with an observable too. But what switch map is going to do, let's say we type here inside the input, we type inside the input, okay, it's not happening, nothing is happening because we don't have the function working. So what is going to happen here is that every time we type, okay, let's just say every time we type, or we say React we're going to make a request to the function. So actually here, let me just type the function so you can see return. So we're going to return the observable that comes from search repos, which is the function we defined there. Okay, outside here that makes the request. So you can see that this one responds with a new observable. So switch map, what it's going to do is that, okay, first we type React and we're going to search using the search repos. But if we continue typing, then what is going to happen is that it's going to cancel the last observable and use the new value that we are typing in order to create a new search repos observable. Okay, so we can get the latest values. So every time we make a change, we're waiting for 400 milliseconds. We're checking if the value that we type has changed in order to make the request. And if that is so, then we are going to make the request. If we have a new value inside the input, we're going to cancel the observable that is happening here. Okay, we're going to cancel this and make another one using the new term so we can receive the new values. So let's continue. But everything is going to happen only if we subscribe to the observable. So here we can use the repos that are coming from the search repos. Remember that this one is returning, okay, is passing the information of the repos. And we can say console.log repos. Let's leave it like this. And let's see. You can see we are getting that every time we're doing we're typing, we're getting a new value, and the switch map, the search repos, is actually taking place every 400 milliseconds. Okay, so we're not spamming the API server, and you can see we receive the total, let's say React, the API response. We just check with the name React. Let's check the other one that is also React. So we're actually looking for everything that has the React name. Now we're only consoling the repos, so far we're just doing that. But just a recap, we're creating an event from the input. So every time we type, we're going to make all this. We're going to return the target value, which is this one. Okay, you can see the React, and React. So that is what we're returning, and that is the term that is being passed here every 400 milliseconds, if only if the value has changed. Okay, so I think this is a better way in order to understand what is going on. Now we're going to say if repos is not equals to null, then message that style that display. We're going to use JavaScript here in order to change the display of the message, which is going to be known at this place at this time. And then we're going to name or call a new function, which is create children. We have done this before with the electron, so we made a similar function there. Else, meaning the repos is not null, is null. Okay? If we have something inside the repos, we're going to create a new children. which is going to contain every card that we displayed before or that I showed you in the preview. Now output that inner HTML is going to be equals to an empty string. So if repos is null, meaning we don't receive anything from the API, then we're going to remove everything from the output, which is in fact the repos container, this div, and say message.style.display equals to just an empty string, meaning it's going to remove the none and make it again into a block display. Okay. So remember before, let's just tackle this one first, that I had display hidden inside the main CSS. Do I have it? Okay. I think it was in body. So let me just take a look at that really quick. Okay. So you can see that we have this scroll bar and it looks actually ugly, and it's not, every time we are moving the browser. And why this is happening? Because this image is taking all this space and is actually trying to be displayed. So what we're going to do is to say overflow x hidden. I think we did this in the design we have with Adobe XD that we turn into a simple HTML. We also use JavaScript in order to add the navigation, but we did something similar, and you can see now that it's just hiding that. It's not going to, you can also change it using media queries, make the image to be in the background, whatever you want. I'm just going to, because it's not that important, so I'm just going to hide it if we don't have the room to display everything. So I think that's done with the CSS. So far, we only need to create one function, that is the create children. So where does this one end? So there's I think it's that one. No, sorry. Because this one, the last one, is for the content loaded. Okay, you can see we have a function here. So let's actually finish this, saying constant create children, and this is a functional approach. So we're creating functions in order to keep the workflow of the application. So for every bit that we want to add, every part of functionality, we're going to create a new function. Okay, so this is a functional programming. Output that inner HTML equals to this empty. Okay, well, let's just keep that one there, and I will show you why I'm going to set the output inner HTML to be empty. But now we have an array, and the array that we're passing here, which, remember, if you can see that here, let's say RxJs. Okay, create is defined. Okay, it's not a problem there. So you can see we have an array here, which is actually the items that are coming. So this is the items, that is the array of 30. So that is what we're getting using repos item. Okay, so let me just check that. Yep, I made a typo there. It's items. I was like, what the hell? So we're going to pass from the response the array called items, but remember that at this point the response is called repos inside the subscribe on line 37, so that is why we are saying repos items, the array inside the repos response. We're going to pass it inside this grade children, which is going to map through all those using the JavaScript map. And let me just copy all this because we have done this before. And I will explain those, okay? So we're going to create a new div element, which is going to be the container. We're going to add to that div the class of item, so we can style it using CSS. We're going to create a new image using create element image. We're going to set the attribute of that image, or I mean the source attribute of that image, to be the response item owner avatar, which each item now is, let me just do this, each item now is one of these, okay? So you can see that the one I'm looking for is item owner avatar URL. So item owner avatar URL, so that is actually the avatar that the owner of the repo has. So we are just using we're just checking inside that object the properties that we want. We're going to set also the attribute of loading to be lazy. Now the title is going to be a new paragraph, so we're going to use document.create element to create a new paragraph. And remember that if we want to add text, we don't use inner HTML, okay? We use create text node in order to add text. So we say item full name, that is the name of the person, and the repo title needs to be appended into the repo title node. The repo title node needs to be appended inside the repo title, so the text is appended inside the paragraph, okay? That is how that works. Now I have a button. This is actually something we typed before in the other, we have done this in Electron and in the other HTML application with Firebase that I have in the channel. So if you want to go in more depth with this, you can just check those videos. So we created a new button using create element. Well, this is not a button, but an anchor, a link. We give the href attribute as well as the target, and the href is going to point to the item HTML URL, which is the URL of the repo of the GitHub page. Now the go button node, which is the text node, is going to say check repo, and we add the text go button node to the element go button. And finally, we use div. We append inside the div the image, the repo title, the go button, and that div, so each one is going to be a div of class item, is going to be appended inside the output. That, remember that the output is actually this div that we already have. So let's take a look and we will see how it is being structured in a second. So let's say React, and you can see we received the information and the text, the message that says no repos to display, disappears. And okay, this is because we didn't set a specific width and height on the loading on the image that has the lazy loading. So what I was going to say, okay, so if I remove this, okay, we have no repos to display, and actually that is working. Yeah. So this seems to be working. So if I just delete those, okay, not define a null, and repos is being displayed. So we actually don't need, or we don't seem to need this output in HTML, but if we even, I can't remember why I said that. Let's say React. You can see that since we selected that, it just types everything, just returns everything. And if we click, let's say Redux, React Redux, it takes us to that page, as you can see. So we can also change this, say Angular, and you see that it takes a few seconds or a little time in order to make the request, because it's checking what is going on, if everything is changing, is happening. So just after that, it's going to make the request. We can remove that and no repos to display. And if we refresh, okay, you can see that everything starts back. So we actually can, okay, remove everything from the search, and everything is going to stop. Sorry, it's not going to stop working, it's going to continue, because we're returning a null value here. But since we're checking if we have the null, okay, if repos if is null, then we're just going to clean everything and display the message again, because you can see that here we're responding with a null value. We're just going to say, okay, just keep passing this null value so the application doesn't break. And I think that's it. So this is an structure that you will follow most times in these applications, or with HTTP request. You're going to wait a few seconds, okay, you will check the timing and you will wait for the values, okay. So when everything is stale, then you're going to check, okay, is everything changed, is there is a change in the inputs, everything or something. Then only after that we're going to make a new request inside the server, and if there is actually a new change happening, okay, here the user keeps typing, then we just using switch map delete the observable or cancel the observable we had before with information, and recycle, or no, well, we can say recycle because it's not actually that, but we cancel one and we use a new one using the search repos that is returning an observable, and that is only going to work if we subscribe to that. Okay, so the repos is actually what we are returning from the search repos, and we can actually start using that here, as we are using with the create children that is creating each div. So let me just show you that. Okay, you can see it's creating a div inside the repos container with the class item. So every time we have one, it's going to create a div a class item. So, and that's it. If we close that or remove that, we are cleaning the inner values of the repos container here, and everything goes back to the way it was before. So that's it. And one more thing, I will start, of course, adding more tutorials using HTML, CSS. So if you're interested, subscribe to the channel, like these contents using HTML and CSS and plain JavaScript. So that's how I will know that you want more of that content, okay? But we're going to continue also with Angular and React and more interesting things in the future. So again, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.